Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Well, in 2018, it took at least 89 hours for port documentation and processes here in Ghana, when it took only 1 hour in Germany and 1 hour 30 minutes in the United States. That's in a report I'll be talking to you more about. But the question is, why does it take so long to clear your goods at the port, for example, after you've had to pay heavily to government? This afternoon, let's talk about paperless ports, the national single window system, and the general effect of systemic inefficiency on your business. The focus is always what will increase your profit and progress. This Tuesday, and I have here in the studio Dr. Andrew Ejay Holmes, who's a research fellow who's here with us. Dr. Holmes, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I also have here in the studio Thomas Kankam Ejay, who's a project officer with Private Enterprise Federation. Mr. Kankam, you're welcome as well.
Thank you very much.
So let's start this conversation with, and like I indicated last week in the conversation, we try to make it a bit more interactive. So as and when we are able to, we will invite you, to share your thoughts with us in this conversation. But I want us to start with a general overview or a background. I've indicated that we're talking about the port, efficiency at the port and how it impacts on businesses. Let me take it from you, since you're speaking to the research part of which I just quoted, about the background, the general overview of the current system at our port. What would you say?
Well, so definitely most of the things that we use here in Ghana are imported, the manufacturers. So we definitely need to have a port which brings those goods to us. And to do that, usually you need to get some form of clearance from customs. And customs is one arm of the JRA. So in the past, we took nearly 20 days to bring it home to clear our goods from the port. And we felt that that was not good enough compared with other places around the world. So the objective was to reduce this time, which consequentially should also reduce the cost to importers. And there are certain ingredients which can go into making this happen. First of all, the port itself ought to be in a certain way to facilitate the process. Second, we need to have a customs processing system that is efficient, that removes the human element to an extent so that things can flow quickly and make sure that the 4 days that we are targeting as a nation is arrived at. So in 2017, around September, Ghana rolled out what we call the paperless system. And we had 3 objectives. The first was to reduce the cost of compliance. Second, to reduce the time for compliance. And ultimately, make sure that the goods that are imported, they are declared rightly and government gets her revenue in the right amounts and from the right people. And make sure that the money does not go into the hands of wrong people and importers do not also overpay.
That's something that we will be, breaking down as we go along. But then a quick intervention I wanted to make when you mentioned the fact that we need to make it easier, for our import and our export, is to also look at what's indicated in this report that talks about international trade, the role of international trade in economic boom for us as a country. But then again, there's this issue which has always been of concern to a lot of people about the imbalances of this trade, this international trade. Does that come to play at all in this conversation? I mean, as far as efficiency at the port is concerned, the imbalances, as in, if you compare weaker economies, if you compare Ghana's economy, for example, to that of the US economy, you would say it's fair to say, or it's safe to say, that Ghana has a weaker economy. Wouldn't you say?
I wouldn't be quick to address that issue. The point is we have an instrument, and I'm calling it an instrument, the port system, whether Takoradi, Tema or Kotoka. It's an instrument, it's a tool to facilitate international trade. Whether an economy is weak or not, we are trading. So we should ensure that...
I'm just wondering whether that comes to play at all. Does it come to play at all, do you think?
In making the ports efficient?
Yes. in having that discussion, maybe I should bring Pef in there, because you're business people, right? And so do you feel that that comes to play at all? To what extent does it even come to play?
Okay, then I think from where Prof just ended off, I think it has to do more with the ability of the country to invest in infrastructure, because for any port system to deliver as it's expected or to be efficient, then you are looking at the infrastructure in place, capacity, and the people who are managing the system. So if an economy is weak, automatically you can't have the resources to invest in these areas. So that will translate into Ghana being inefficient in terms of the port system being weak, because we can't invest rightly into our port systems. So that will be the advantage of the United States over Ghana, because they will have the resources in that sense to invest in their port infrastructure.
Okay, that was just a little bit of a detour that I wanted us to make, because I think it's an important part of the conversation, because people will also look out for how we're competing, how we're positioned to compete against these other economies. But again, let's come back to the issue of efficiency at our port. You've spoken about the fact that there are still a lot of infrastructure interventions that are being made to make it a bit easier. Now, I'll have that talk about those interventions and how efficient they've been over the years. But maybe I should come to you. Okay. I should come to you with this. Since 2018, I've seen here that it took 89 hours here in Ghana for people to transact business, at the port. In that same year, it was taking an hour in Germany to do the things that it took us 89 hours to do. In the US, it took an hour, an hour 0.5. So that's like 1 hour 30 minutes. In the UAE, it took 6 hours. In Botswana, it took 18 hours, and 8.6 hours in China. Would you say that based on the interventions made by government between 2018 and now, there has been any real, concrete, tangible change that has made businesses efficient?
Yes, certainly. Based on the research done by ISA and through this program, we've realized that it's been reduced from, as you said, 89 days to now it's 4 hours in Ghana here at Tema Port. So
is this 4 days or 4 hours?
I think he meant four
days.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, if it's 4 days, then that's like an exponential jump.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but then the target is to get to 4 hours.
Okay.
Eventually. So if you've been able to reduce from 89 days to 4 days, I think that's a massive improvement in the state of affairs.
But you are representing industries. Yeah. Are the people there who work in the various industries, are they feeling it? Do they give you that feedback that suggests that this is actually reflecting what's on the ground?
Oh, yes, certainly, yes. We have a positive feedback from our users at the port, and so far, through our interactions, through the research and other means, we've been able to gather that at least a satisfaction level of about 6/10 is been achieved. So I think it's something we cannot celebrate so much, but then it's obviously a step in the right direction, which we can always do better and improve on.
So if we cannot celebrate enough, what else do we need to do? And Doc, I'm coming to you about harmonization of the interventions. Yes. We have the National Single Window System, which was introduced in 2002 based on this report I have here. And then we also have the paperless system, which, last year, I think 2017, we had the Vice President lead vehemently. How would you say we have harmonized these processes? Because I've had a couple of complaints as well.
Yes, obviously, we have not got to where we want to get to. And the National Single Window, paperless ports, they are building blocks of the process. What we've done so far has actually brought improvements which ought to be, which we could be happy about. But there are a few things that we can look at. We are supposed to, as an importer, you have to go through what we call compliance. It is one point where there are challenges. You also have to go through what we call presenting your more or less way bill and then passing through the gate. If you talk to business people, the main places where these challenges are occurring is the compliance. Formerly, the compliance seat was in the port, but it has been moved to the head office. And at the head office, if you submitted all your documents over the platform, the internet platform, and they got everything, then they could declare you as a compliant person, then you go ahead and clear your goods. But sometimes people can put in this request, pay everything they ought to pay, and they might not receive any feedback up to about 4 days. And if your documents stay in the system for up to 4 days, it's problematic because it then adds up to the number of days that you'll be spending at the port. Number two, after having cleared your goods, some vehicles stay in a queue for more than 5 hours just to get out of the port.
Are these vehicles that are being cleared, or?
Yeah, I'm talking about the trucks which carry the goods out of the port. They can stay there up to about 5 hours, and that is problematic. So if we can address issues of the time it takes to get compliance, and then how quickly you can leave the port, it will be helpful. So we dug deeper into what was happening at the compliance that might be creating the problem. First of all, importers use the people we call clearing agents. So if you are an importer, you definitely have to supply this clearing agent with
details,
truthful information or honest information, or number three, correct information. If you give correct information to the clearing agent and they also did the inputs correctly, then you are likely to get a response within less than an hour for your goods to be declared compliant. But if there are mistakes, then customs officers ought to take a critical look to ensure that you are not cheating the state or importing goods which are contraband. And that takes some time. So if you put in a mistake, they will bring you a query and you have to respond to the query. Those queries and back and forth responses can extend the number of hours or days that you spend in clearing your goods. So for progress to be made, whoever is importing something from, let's say, Niamey or Togo or England should ensure that the inputs they make are correct. Then number two, sometimes the customs people at the compliance unit do not also give quick feedback to the clearing agents. There was supposed to be a dashboard on the system, the paperless system, where as soon as a query is made, the clearing agent should receive some kind of information on his or her phone. But it doesn't always happen, and that causes delays. So if I'm in...
And we know what is causing this problem, that particular problem.
So this is an action research, and we are digging deeper. But it possibly could be human...
error?
Not an error, but a human breach. So,
and I'm indicating this because recently the vice president was talking, and you know that he's been very big on this. He seems to be pushing this agenda. He's indicated that even before they started to roll out this, there was opposition, and he actually said, in bringing an innovation, introducing an innovation in Ghana, is like fighting demons and principalities. The point that I think he made was how difficult it is to get this to penetrate the system, a system that is already established. Do you get the sense, based on the research and the work that you have done, that there could be some form of sabotage, which is why the system perhaps is not working as effectively as it should, based on the submission you made earlier?
Yeah, so I'll make this point again. We were doing 20 days, and we've moved to 4 days. The ultimate target is 4 hours. If within a year and a bit, you've moved from 20 days to 4 days, 4 days is 32 hours, then there's great progress.
Okay.
But you should also understand that there has been a lot of reorganization of the processes, and human beings ought to adjust. But there is a third issue we need to discuss beyond the human beings and the reforms. We also operate in a country where we rely on a certain landscape of internet service provision.
Okay.
And that is critical to the whole paperless system.
Okay.
So if the internet is down for 5 hours, definitely I cannot blame a clearing agent, nor can I blame a customs officer. Of course, we are not attempting to shift blames, but as Thomas mentioned, infrastructure is also key. But that does not always depend on the resources you have. It depends on the decisions you make about how you want to use those resources. If we believe that fiber optics can help improve the internet that the customs people use, and it costs so much, then we
investment into that infrastructure.
Yes, and of course we've seen changes at the domestic taxes, where they used to use radio infrastructure. Now they've changed to the fiber optics, and we've seen progress.
Okay.
So customs officer goes to work and can sit for 5 hours just for the internet to return.
Okay.
Improvements have been made, but we believe that if more progress is made, the time can be reduced further.
Okay, so before I interrupted, you were going on about how the system is working, what you have found in terms of how the system is working. So do take it on from where you left off before I interrupted.
Yes, so I've talked about the compliance.
Yes.
There is another unit called the tagging unit, which is more or less like a senior house mistress. So after the house mistress has done all the checks, maybe they come around randomly to ensure that importers or clearing agents are compliant. What we found is that it also added to the delays. But recently, about a month or two ago, we've seen that unit being removed. And we believe that it would further help deepen the reduction in the number of hours used.
Okay.
The third thing we found, which I think is a difficult discussion to make, because it's about our own safety.
Okay.
And in choosing between safety and time saving, we ought to be careful. So when people who are clearing their goods are leaving the port, they are also finally checked by national security. So it adds to the time.
To the time.
But
it's an important part of the the process to make sure that what's coming in is
excellent.
good enough.
So the point is, if you look at the White House, it's not a thick wall. They are just very slim metals. You can look through, you can go close to it and do everything you want. But the system makes sure that whoever gets close to the White House is more or less checked in some way or the other. And they don't prevent tourists from getting close to the White House just because we are afraid that there are security problems. So there is the need for some kind of discussions and further opening up of the problem to see if the national security aspect could be reduced. If it's random, it might help. Fourth, there is another group called preventive. So after the valuation unit of customs has done its work, the compliance unit has cross-checked. When you are taking your goods out, the preventive people also check again. So for one activity, we have up to 4 layers of
checkpoints.
Yes. And it seems to be creating some bottlenecks.
Okay.
But why is that? If I import a container of short-sleeved singlets, and I'm honest, and I say so, there is a scanner which can check and say that it's true. If I do not tell the truth and they find that there are, let's say, 10 long-sleeved singlets which are not cotton but, let's say, nylon, then you are also making the giving customs reason to check you next time you come.
Okay.
So those things, people say, oh, we are bringing utensils. You open it and there are wax prints.
Okay.
So it is two ways. The importer must tell the agent the truth.
How do we deal with this problem? Because as for the importer telling the agent the truth, I mean, I'm not sure about the extent of truthfulness of people if you don't put systems in place to check the truthfulness in the things that they say. So I'm not quite sure. How do we deal with this problem then?
We must have supplied you with a graph some time ago.
I don't have the graph at the moment, but I do remember that graph, which was the first Tuesday that we did this.
Yeah, which is quite interesting that in 2008, we see more people being given medium risk.
2008 or
2018?
18, last year.
Yeah, we see progress in the number of people who are important and are declared medium risk.
Because the more you tell lies, the slower the system becomes for you.
So there's some kind of artificial intelligence which collects data based on your TIN number.
Okay.
And says that this importer...
You were a pathological liar.
Or
this person over there, this is the record. This is the record.
As easy as that.
This person has not been so truthful.
Or maybe truthful might not be a fair word to use, because there are people who also make genuine mistakes.
Mistakes, okay.
So if that risk level is there, then you cannot walk out with your goods without being scanned or being opened.
So if I understand you properly, there is a system that checks people, it checks the importers, and it checks their records to make it easier for them. So if you have a cleaner record, the system is smoother for you and it's faster.
Exactly.
But if you don't have a clean record, and by clean records you mean that people who don't, for one reason or the other, have not been able to declare their goods correctly. Okay. All right.
There's a fifth point which might be interesting to also note. Within this whole discussion, there is also that aspect which we may not be able to touch, but might be the reason why people who import might not be truthful to the system. Okay. So some say that the duties are quite high.
Exactly.
So if I cannot pay, then I might gamble and see if it can go through. If it doesn't go through, then I pay the penalty.
What we have heard is that there are people, officials on the ground who will actually help you to evade the taxes that you need to pay. So if you're supposed to pay, let's say, 5,000, you talk to them, they work it out for you, and then you get to pay about 2,000 or 2,500. And this 2,000 does not go to the state; it goes to the pocket of these officials. Did you find anything that points to this fact?
We didn't do this work before the paperless, but it's becoming more difficult to do that, because the more you give so many human beings their hands to operate, then there's potential for this to happen. We cannot not run away from that. But because it's now paperless, you submit your invoice, your documents on the internet. Then it goes to a system where it's not just the customs officer who can have a look, but the supervisor can also have a look. Okay. If a minister of trade or whoever, maybe take for granted that they also have the authority to check, they can also check. So the paperless has made it much more difficult to evade taxes. It's no longer straightforward, because the human interaction has gone. Reduced. And remember that the valuers, there were private valuers who were many. That has been moved to the head office for compliance. So it's no longer very easy for people to do some of
these things. Okay, I'll come to you, Pef. Now, when I come to you, I want us to talk about some of the gaps in the system that you may have identified, or that your members may have identified and shared with you. And then when you talk to us about those gaps, I'll come to you, Doc, about whether or not there are different gaps that you've identified and how we can deal with those gaps. So before that, let me play to you a report put together by Sheila Tamaklo of Joy Business. In that report, she looks at progress made so far with the paperless system at the port.
2 years of reforming operations at the various ports in the country, there has been concerns that import duties are high, while unfair charges and other trade-related practices continue to impede smooth trading. This has resulted in some agitations from business associations and corporate agencies impressing upon government to find a lasting solution to the challenges. Alexis Siama is chairman for the Tema Secretariat of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders.
The only thing that has changed is it has moved from one area, one point of the chain to another. And when you go to the port, goods can be scanned and still officers will not be happy with the scanned document.
According to the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Carlos Ahenkra, some of the challenges have been identified and government is working to avert the situation.
It's just unfortunate that a system that was aiding customs to collect the duties or to value cargo was so, let me say, discretionary, let me use the word. Because custom officer would draw down on a particular price of a product and he will get 6 or 8 prices there. He has the discretion to choose one. You can't fault him. So you see situations where imports are coming from the same place, but values are different for different importers.
A report was put together by Sheila Tamaklo there, and the minister talks about discretion. Let me come to you, Perth. How do you? I don't know how much you know about discretion when it comes to the customs officers, because apparently there are some options that they need to choose from when they go in the system, and it's at their discretion. How much has this worried your members? Have they mentioned any of these? And once you've mentioned that, you can go ahead and talk about the gaps that you think you've identified with the paperless system.
So I think the issue about discretion goes back to if you remember, the Vice President raised the other day about benchmark values and all that. People coming in with different values for the same product. Yeah. So I think in that situation, the only way out is for customs as the state agency with a mandate to come out with its own, values or prices for items which have an international benchmark. Then based on that, we can all, because we should all have a level playing ground for us before we can measure anything. So I think with that one, to me, that's a fair way it can be dealt with.
That's the only way.
It might not be the only way, but then at least for now, that's the way to go until we come out with something else that can improve the system. So then going forward, as Doc mentioned, one of the challenges we've had with this paperless port system is the issue about internet connectivity and the downtimes, because I might be compliant, all right, but then because the internet in someone's office is not working or something, they have to wait for 6 hours or 5 hours or whatever time I have to wait for. And for a business, one of the important things you always look at is time savings, because apart from saving on costs, we also have to save on time because we value time as money. Yeah. So that's one of the challenges. And also with the mandatory or the introspective inspection, because we are expecting that I've declared my goods, customs have done their CCVA or the verification and all that, and the report has come out. But then, due to some of these human errors, as was alluded by Doc, they also want to check, because you said that you have short sleeve shirts in your container, but then we get to find that maybe there's one short sleeve in there. So then you have to, go through that kind of checks to make sure that everything is in place and that the state is not being shortchanged. So those are some of the things that come into play when we talk about the challenges, but also the issue about, I think, staffing, because one of the issues we also identified about causing the delays from, the compliance office at the head office is that maybe because of the amount of traffic on the system, and you need people to also work
more hands
work on these systems so that they can approve people's clearance of goods and all that. So if those kinds of issues come into play, then it also affects the time delivery of clearing your goods at the port. So those are things naturally will happen, but then going forward, and that's why we are also embarking on this exercise to try and let them know the challenges we are facing and how we think it can best be addressed.
And unfortunately, we've not been able to have the GRA with us on this particular conversation, so we get their thought. The last time that we had this conversation, we spoke to the GRA officials, and of course, then we can deal directly with the problems and look at how they can deal with the solutions. But unfortunately, we don't have them here with us. But hopefully they're watching. I know that the Immigration Service, they watch this show a lot. And so we know that they're watching, they're listening. I'm sure it falls under their purview.
The
customs division. But they all work together. They work together with the immigration, don't they?
Well, the GRA now has 2 parts.
Okay.
The domestic taxation and then the customs.
So whichever way, hopefully someone is watching, and we'll get to deal with that with what needs to be done to address the challenges. So I'm coming back to you, Doc, with these problems that he's highlighted. Are they similar to the gaps that you identified in your research?
Obviously, this is information that we have more or less supplied to the Private Enterprise Federation. But one other thing that might be interesting to also touch on is the port infrastructure itself. And I want to go a bit more detailed. If you go to the TCT container terminal, you know that is different from the Jubilee. There are about 4 different container docks.
Okay.
Terminal. And they are not operating at the same, more or less, efficiency level. And it depends on what they have there. So if you imported just one product in one container and you pass it through the container terminal, it's possible that you can leave in an hour because they have a scanner which can deal with that.
Okay.
If I find my container, let's say in Jubilee, and I had just one product, then the challenge is how to move the container to the TCT for it to be looked at by the scanner. Then there's also the question about how modern are our scanners. Because if you have very advanced kinds of scanners, then they can actually undertake more complicated tasks. If you have more than 2 products and the scanner is very advanced, it should be able to tell what products are in there, so that we don't need to open the containers. Because at first, we were opening 9 out of every 10 containers to check.
That's a lot of work.
But now it's been reduced to about 55%. The ultimate target is 10%. At some point, we even came down to around 50%.
And we are sure that we're not sacrificing safety for time.
That's that we need to keep a balance.
Okay.
And you know, there are more or less 3 layers. The shipper should be truthful, and most shippers would ensure that what the bill of lading they've been given actually is the same thing in the containers.
Okay.
Sometimes some pass under the carpet, we don't see it. But for people to import very things that are not good, we have 3 institutions who are supposed to ensure that it works: the customs herself, the Ghana Standards Authority, and then the Food and Drug
FDA.
No matter what it is,
someone will find it.
Yes.
Well, we've seen instances where things, unwholesome goods weren't found there, and they found their way, the way into the system. But let's go back to the
yes. I don't think the ultimate goal is to get to a zero point.
What shouldn't that be?
It's about minimizing it to the level that is bearable.
Okay.
Because no matter the level of policing, there will still be some bad people. So within a year and a bit, we've reduced that intrusive inspection to 55%.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that we can also check whether Food and Drugs Board checks on the market is beginning to see more unwholesome goods on the Ghanaian market. It's the other side of the mirror. Okay. If we can assume that, well, because we are now checking very few, then it has become porous and people are bringing in.
I cannot say either. I cannot say either, except that, you know, on a few occasions we've come across some of these. But I want us to, in wrapping up, to deal with these issues that have been raised. The issue of discretion. I'll have you speak to the issue of discretion, the issue of infrastructural deficit. You've mentioned that as well. And then he also talked about staffing, the fact that there need to be more hands to fast track the process, to make it easier so that people don't have to be in a queue. Let's start with discretion. How do we deal with that issue?
So I will take, I honestly don't know the window, the time window the minister is referring to.
Okay.
You know, every product in this world has a code. Technically, we call them HS code. And this code identifies the product. But because there are very similar products, under one big heading, there can be several subheadings. So I go in there as a customs officer and possibly go and click something which is very close.
Okay.
For those issues, there shouldn't be much differences in the duties that one will pay. And if customs officers do this over time, you will see that they will all be operating at the same level. And that is what the one importer makes us understand, that at some point, no matter which clearing agent you go to, they will give you the same or similar charges for similar products. Okay. So we got there at some point. But somehow...
Are we back to square one?
We might have moved back a bit, but it's not square one.
Okay.
Yeah, what we are told, and this is anecdotal, it's not backed by a survey.
Okay.
What we are told is that when the compliance was moved to head office and some of the private valuers were taken out of the stream, there are new people doing the job. Okay. I'm sure the first time you started this work, you might have been a bit nervous, went back home and looked at yourself.
But the impact should be minimal. The impact of your inability to get along and to deliver your best at the first instance should be minimal, shouldn't it?
Yes.
Because if I came to the job and I did a very poor job, I'm sure I would have been kicked out a long time ago.
I hope not, because but the other side of the coin is, when everything was moved out of the hands of physical human beings, and probably that is when we began to see the correct valuations.
I see.
It could be that because we recorded an increase of about 53% in government revenue in the first month when paperless happened.
Okay.
So maybe the prices which were being given to importers
all over the years were not as accurate.
Or probably the month before September
were not as accurate.
Might have been
okay.
lower.
So what's the suggestion as far as dealing with
training?
Training.
Yes, training so that all customs officers can work on the same level. And number two, if you are not happy with any valuation that is given you, you can appeal.
Okay.
You can, to a large extent, you can even take the JRA to court and say that for A, B, and C reason, I think that the valuation given to me is not right.
Okay.
They've made progress with cars. As soon as you put in the chassis number, that one is
the value.
But maybe your shirt is blue, it's pink, all those details.
Those are issues that we need to thrash out as we go along. I'll take a quick final comment on this, and then we'll call it a wrap. But I need to make this promise again that as we go along, we'll be making it more interactive, so that those of you who have issues with your businesses, as far as the topics that we'll be discussing are concerned, can call in and talk to us, talk to the resource persons who have done the research, so that they can talk to you about how to be more efficient or how to make the systems work for you better. So let me wrap up with your final comments. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Ajay Kankam. Kankam Ajay, right? It always works. Okay, about your final words. We were working on this program. We're hoping that it will increase the profits of people, business people, and bring about progress. But when we get away from interviews like this or from conversations like this, what for you is the one thing that you want those who have been watching to take away from this interaction?
Okay, first of all, the Private Enterprise Federation is set up to promote the creation of an enabling environment for the private sector. So issues like this are the reasons why we are there, or we survive. So for me, coming from the Private Enterprise Federation, I'll just urge the private sector out there that this is a good initiative. They should support it, and then if there's anything, they should give feedback to us, and we also engage government, because one of our responsibilities is to engage government and to advocate. And that's where ISA also comes in to support us with the research.
With research, with a scientific background.
Exactly. So the feedback from the private sector is very key, and we will need that to always continue, because it's a process, because we are saying profit and progress. So we move from one level to the other. Okay. So I think that's how we should look at it. We can't create a perfect system within a very short time. We just have to be part of the process and ensure that we are paying our fair share of taxes and revenue.
Certainly, and we will be making those avenues for feedback available so that you can get your voices heard. Doc, I'm coming to you for your final words. You've done all this great work on this so far. What do you see at the end of the day? What should people take away from this program, and what do you see? Where do you see this project heading?
Obviously, there are two critical stakeholders: the tax collectors and the payers. So last year, I needed a passport, and by mistake, I checked on the internet and saw there was a fast-track passport service.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were just test running. I didn't know that. I failed it, and somehow I got my passport in 3 weeks.
Okay.
At some point, maybe business people and tax collectors might have to meet and think about a premium service so that people who really think that they need their goods cleared as quickly as possible can do so.
And can pay more money for the state, efficiency for the business people.
And that is not to say we should also put aside our 4-hour target.
Okay.
We can continue working on it and then also create an opportunity for people who can pay to do so.
Okay.
Because sometimes, if that avenue is not there, they end up paying money to people who
go
don't have
through the back door.
Exactly.
And that's where all the problems of this country begins, because then government, we're not paying, we're not being truthful, government doesn't get enough money, it says, to do the things that it needs to do. But of course, at the end of the day, all that we're focused on with this program is for you to make enough profits from your businesses, and that way we all progress together. I've been having this conversation with Dr. Andrew A.J. Holmes, his research fellow at ISE, and also Thomas Kankam A.J., his project officer at the Private Enterprise Federation, PEF. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.